Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk about anxiety. I'm looking forward to talking to you about it. So, my name is Victoria Valdez. I'm a master's of marriage and family therapy, local to Nashville and Brentwood. My private practice is in Brentwood. I also do contract work through Project Play at a local high school. Let's go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about me, a little bit more about me. You can pause the video, of course, and kind of look about where you can find me and how you can contact me. I work with children, teenagers, and families. I do a lot of grief work, a lot of work with trauma, anxiety, depression, family conflict, helping co-parenting, sibling issues. I also do trauma work with children and teens and families. I use a modality called brain spotting for trauma, excuse me, anxiety and depression. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So before I actually talk about anxiety, I wanted to talk about what is mental health. So mental health includes three things. Excuse me. It's emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And those three things together, it affects how we think, how we feel, and how we act. Those three things together, it also determines how we handle stress and how we relate to others, and how we make healthy choices. Those all influence those things. So mental illnesses are among the most common health condition in the United States. We know that more than 50% will be in the United States will be diagnosed with a mental illness at some point in their lifetime. And I got this from the CDC. We know that more than 8.9 million Latinos in the United States will have some type of disorder, a mental health disorder, and at any given year. And we know that 1 out of 11 Latinos that have a mental health issue actually go out and look for help. And we know that 1 in 5 children, either currently or at some point during their life, have had a serious mental health issue enough to where it impairs their way of life. So anxiety. It's a response to objects or situations with fear, dread, or terror. And we'll go into a little bit more specific about the umbrella of anxiety and the type of anxiety underneath that. But some common anxiety disorders include like general anxiety, social anxiety, separation anxiety, panic disorder, and phobias. And anxiety is the most common mental health disorder in the United States. 40 million people 18 and older have anxiety. And it's highly treatable, but only 36% seek out treatment. So some symptoms for anxiety are restlessness, feeling keyed up, on edge, being really irritable, being easily fatigued, easy to get tired, difficult concentrating, mind going blank. Sometimes it's hard to remember things, right? Because if you're not concentrating, it'll be hard to remember. Sleep, muscle tensions, right? Lots of tension, shoulders, sleep disturbances. So it could be like falling asleep, staying asleep, not having peaceful sleep. So under the umbrella of anxiety, you have separation anxiety, which is excessive worry and fear about being apart from your family members or individuals that you're really attached to, right? Then selective mutism, which, it's a childhood anxiety disorder where their inability to speak and communicate effectively in social settings such as school is a good example. Like maybe the teacher calls on them in the classroom and they have such an intense fear of speaking that they can't bring themselves to do it. And then we have a specific phobia, right? Which is like an irrational fear of an object, situation, or location. And I like to use the example of like having an extreme phobia to like a clown, like those clown dolls. So clearly we all would understand that, a clown can't necessarily, hurt you, a doll. But so that's where we have that irrational fear of what it could do, right? Or just the irrational fear of the clown. Then we have social anxiety disorder, which is like a social phobia of being out in public. Maybe it could be being in a setting like a classroom, going to an airport where there's a bunch of people you don't know, different social settings, like going to the store, right? And then we have panic attacks, which is where you're having them frequently. And a panic attack can range from anything to like heavy breathing, your heart is beating really fast, you can't catch your breath, you're sweating, you may be feeling dizzy and nauseated all at once, to the point where some people, they end up going to the hospital, they're not sure what's going on, they feel like really scared, the doctor checks them out, gives them a clear that their heart is okay, come to find out that they're having a panic attack. Then you have agoraphobia, which is that fear of being in a situation where you can't escape and no one can help you, or it'll be difficult for help to get to you if something were to go wrong. And then the general anxiety disorder is just general fear and worry that is so intense that it is affecting, I like to say with teens, it's keeping you from living your best life, right? And then you have drug-induced anxiety disorder, which has to do with it could be prescription drugs. It could be, marijuana or heroin, cocaine, a drug that induces anxiety. And then after repeated use, now you've had drug-induced anxiety enough to becomes an anxiety disorder. So let's talk about what is normal anxiety, because everybody feels nervous sometimes. It's okay. It's totally normal for me, I'll use me example, for me, maybe to feel a little nervous about the presentation, right? Or right before you go on, sometimes musicians, world famous musicians I've heard a few say that even they still feel nervous getting on stage in front of everyone, just a little bit of nervousness, right? And that's normal, worrying occasionally about some type of an event, a deadline, an exam, embarrassment, or feeling a little bit self-conscious in the face of an uncomfortable social setting, random case of nerves or jitters, feeling a little sweaty or over an exam or a presentation. That's all. Everyone feels a little worry sometimes, or having a realistic fear over an object or place or situation. Later, I'll give an example of that, right? Or just a little bit of worry of wanting to feel confident that you're healthy and living in a safe environment, hazard free. Those are normal things to feel worried about, and it's okay. When anxiety becomes so intense that it literally is getting in the way, your worry is getting in the way of you living your best life. For example, you can't go to the store anymore because your anxiety is so much, it's so heavy, you can't bring yourself to go to the store. Or maybe you avoid making friends. It's too hard to talk to people. That's when it's getting in the way of you making friends. That's when it's getting in the way of you being able to maybe have a job. Maybe you're having panic attacks at work, right? That's when anxiety gets in the way, and that's when you need assistance. That's when you need help. That's when it's important to reach out to a mental health professional. So we're going to talk a little bit about how anxiety presents in children and teens. So with children and teens, anxiety can present a little bit differently. There could be some agitation, restlessness, inattention, poor focus, somatic symptoms such as like headaches, stomach aches, dizziness, maybe just avoidance in general, because the worry is so big that they're avoiding whatever it is, avoiding going to school, avoiding going to lunch, right? Avoiding certain stores, tantrums, crying, refusing to go to school, difficulties with transitions within school and between school, an activity in a sport, difficulty settling down for bed, having high expectations for school, homework, and sports performance, meltdowns before and after school about clothing and hair, shoes, what they're wearing. They're throwing a huge tantrum or extremely upset over their outfit because they're so worried. The anxiety is filling their mind about worry about this. They're going to make fun of you. Who's looking at that? They're going to think this. And it's overwhelming for them. Something I like to talk about is, where anxiety stems from in our brain, right? So in our brain, we have the limbic system, and I was thinking about using the hand model here, but I didn't make this up. This is Daniel Siegel's hand model. So if this were our brain, this would be the prefrontal cortex, this front part right here. And inside the midbrain would be our limbic system, and then our amygdala, right? So the amygdala are these small almond shape, about the size of an almond, and they're on both sides, deep in the mid of your brain. And that's where you have your fear center and your emotions. And that's kind of what I like to call the home base of where anxiety sits. And anxiety, it directly relates, and stress acts like stress and fear, and it ignites our fight, flight, or freeze factor. And an example I like to use with families, and if you're one of my families watching this video, you'll know what I'm talking about. The bear in the woods example. If you're walking down the street, if you're walking in the woods with your family and you see a big old bear, how are you going to feel? How is your body going to react? Well, you're going to have some fear, right? You're going to be scared. You might have fight, flight, freeze response, right? Well, what I like to explain to families and kids and teens about how anxiety works is that anxiety is like seeing that bear. Your body is reacting and feeling and seizing, fight, flight, or freeze like if it was seeing a bear. So for example, with a child who doesn't want to go to school, maybe their social anxiety is so big. And so for them, and they're so worried about whatever's happening at school or what's going to happen, that their body is responding in such a way like it is seeing a big bear, and they are terrified. Even though they might know in their mind that there is no grizzly bear or no bear at the school, their body and their mind is reacting in such a way, which is why you might see extreme refusal to go to school, tantrums or crying, or irritability, agitation, avoidance, because that's how they're experiencing that for them. It's that intense. So I hope that helps with some understanding there. A lot of times families, we get this, because we don't know any better, we get this idea, well, oh, it's just in your head. Like, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. Just, stop thinking about it. But once we have this understanding of how it works, how our fear center, our amygdala is getting fired, like an alarm button is being pushed, and our body and mind is reacting in such an intense way. And it's all connected, and it's very real. It's not just in our thoughts or in our head. It's very real. And those connections over time, the more that we avoid and we give into the anxiety, and we avoid the schools and we avoid the situation, the stronger the anxiety gets. I like to use the analogy with families of, and to kids and teens, let's not feed, the anxiety. We're making it bigger. Let's figure out as a team strategies and interventions that we can do to stop feeding that anxiety and making it strong. And we can make ourselves more resilient, right? So just kind of going more into how anxiety is within children. So it's like the iceberg, right? So what you see up top, above the ocean, you see the top of the iceberg, which is the children's behavior, maybe anger, lack of focus, sleep issues, defiance. They're avoiding, they're negative, they're over planning. So you might see all those behaviors. Maybe they're, there's so many things, but underneath the iceberg, the things you don't see is what they're feeling. They're embarrassed, they're helpless, they're scared, they feel hurt, insecure, rejected, they feel grief, they feel lonely, disrespected, jealous, maybe depressed. They have all these big feelings, and what you're seeing is just the behavior. And over here is an example of, now this is not an example of any of my clients. There's a resource at the end where I got this credit from, just so you know, no name has been it's been erased and all of that. But, this is an example of a child experiencing where they feel their anxiety in their body. Sometimes they cry, you see here. Sometimes their hands get sweaty, but they feel butterflies in their tummy and their heart beats faster. And sometimes it makes them need to go to the bathroom more. Their head feels fuzzy. This is a small child expressing how they're feeling, experiencing their anxiety. So moving on to treatment. So therapy. So the goal in therapy is to help clients regulate their emotions, manage their stress, understand patterns and behavior that affect interpersonal relationships. And so with anxiety, some evidence research based therapies that have well established is cognitive behavioral therapy, prolonged exposure therapy, dialectical behavior therapy are some of the most effective ways of treating anxiety. And so just kind of diving into those. So when you go look for a therapist, finding a therapist who has some training. They don't need to be necessarily certified, but the fact that they have had training in cognitive behavioral therapy or dialectic or use exposure interventions. So the idea for exposure when I work with anxious families, is helping them come up with a plan of how do we titrate little by little, set up goals and interventions to lean into the anxiety, to lean into the thing that the anxiety doesn't want you to do. And a good example could be, let's say you have a teen or a child who's afraid to go out into social settings like a store. So let's start with the store that is a little bit easier to go into. Let's go there, let's support the child. You take the child to that store, you encourage them. And then now let's pick a store that's a little bit harder, a little bit more challenging to go into. And then you go to that store, you work your way up little by exposure, little over time. You build up that confidence. They start to feel the success of I can do it. And so in a sense, you're starving the anxiety, right? You're not feeding it anymore. You're not doing it, avoiding, because the anxiety is telling you, don't go there. They're going to look at you. Don't do this. Don't do that. And so if you lean into it over time, you're going to make those new brain connections to where your brain's not hitting the alarm that there's a grizzly bear every time you step into a store. And so that's something that you can do with a clinical professional who will help you in that. So medications, I am by no means a medical doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I cannot prescribe meds. But what I will say is what I know about research says that medication and therapy go hand in hand in some cases, sometimes. And that's something that you can discuss with your therapist or with a psychiatrist or with your doctor or your pediatrician, the use of medications alongside therapy for anxiety. So other things that people do to incorporate and mix along with their therapeutic treatment or with medications is mindfulness, yoga. Some people do neurofeedback. There is some research about CBD oil and food therapies. And when I say food and disclaimer, I am no yoga instructor. I am no neurofeedback practitioner. I am no medical doctor or producer of CBD oils. I'm not trained in food therapies. These are just modalities of treatment that I know can be, that people have used to have a well-rounded experience to help treat their anxiety. Mindfulness can be really helpful to help focus you in the present moment to induce a sense of calm state, right? And then you're welcome to look at these other ones on your own time. We're going to go on to coping skills. So some really good coping skills for anxiety can be, again, mindfulness. Mindfulness is just another practice of being mindful in the moment, focusing on paying attention to what it is that you're doing in the moment. And it can be anything from, observing an object, doing deep breathing, noticing what you're feeling, a form of mindfulness I like to do with young kiddos. When they're feeling distressed or upset or need time to calm down, I'll do the threes. So there's different variations of this. What do you hear? What do you see? And what do you feel? Three things. 3 things you see, 3 things you feel, and 3 things you hear. So they're focusing all their attention in the moment, in the present moment of observation. That's one way to do mindfulness. And then breathing exercise where you can Google those different types. You can breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth with pauses, different cadences. You can use religious prayers in your breathing and meditation on positive thoughts. There's different ways. Challenging negative cognitions, it's a CBT, or positive self-talk. It's a CBT type of intervention where if you're challenging the negative thought, if you're having a negative thought that involves worry, that what if I go to the dance and everyone, doesn't like my outfit, or I don't look cool, or my hair is going to look really messed up, and now I'm not going to have any friends. So let's challenge that thought. Okay, let's put it on trial and see where it takes you. What truth do we have there? Or replacing the negative thought with a more positive one, positive self-talk. So instead of saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to use the dance example. Going to the dance. Oh my gosh, I suck at dancing so much, nobody is going to want to dance with me. Instead, we could say, you know what? I haven't really learned to dance yet. And I might not be the best at it, but I have these people that I could practice, or I could watch these videos, and it's okay. I don't have to have it all figured out because it's my first time to go to a dance. So you're reframing it, you're flipping it, a more positive thought. And then I recommend Kristin Neff. I really like her materials, practicing self-compassion exercises, learning to just, honor your feelings and having compassion on yourself, and knowing that it's okay, practicing that on a daily routine. And you guys can take a look at that more and Google any of these to get more information. So you can pause the video and look at these. There's some apps, on the website for Kristin Neff, some other resources here that you can look into. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and look forward from hearing from you guys. If you have questions, you can go ahead and go back to the beginning of the video and look at how to contact me. Thank you guys so much.